The door of the diner swung shut behind me, the warm smell of fried food fading into the crisp bite of afternoon air. I'd just finished lunch with a contact who'd passed me something important enough that my mind was still replaying the conversation when I heard the sharp bark. "Hey, you! Hands where I can see 'em!" I turned, slow. The voice was loud enough to cut through the street noise, and the eyes behind it were hard, fixed on me like I'd just stolen something. His hand hovered close to his holster. "I'm just leaving lunch," I said evenly. "What's the problem, officer?" "Problem?" He gave a short, humorless laugh. "Yeah. Walking around like you own the place. ID, now!" My stomach tightened, but my voice stayed steady. "I'm not required to show ID unless I'm being detained." "You're detained." His thumb twitched against the leather strap of his holster. Behind him, a younger cop shifted uneasily. "Dale, maybe—" "Quiet, Tim. I know what I'm doing." I kept my gaze locked on Whitman. "Sir, you're making a mistake." "Mistake? Only mistake here is letting you run around free." The words weren't just meant to belittle me. They were meant to let everyone watching know exactly what he thought of me. I could feel the shift in the air as a few heads turned. Phones came out. I caught the faint glow of recording screens from the corner of my eye. People loved a scene, but sometimes that same crowd saved lives. Whitman's hand dropped, and in one smooth motion, his gun was out, on the ground, now. Every sound around me dimmed. The passing cars, the distant honk, the murmur of bystanders. All I could hear was my own pulse in my ears. "You sure you want to do this?" I asked quietly. His eyes narrowed, but there was the faintest flicker. There, not doubt, just irritation that I wasn't reacting the way he wanted. "Down, or I'll make you." I didn't move. "And when the cameras are done, and the truth comes out, you'll wish you'd thought twice." Whitman took a step, closer, the barrel of the gun steady, his jaw tight. Harris shifted again, his voice a whisper. "Dale, seriously?" "Back me up," Whitman snapped without looking at him. "Or what?" I asked. My voice was calm, but every muscle in my body was coiled. "You'll point it at him, too?" A ripple moved through the crowd, whispers, quick glances. He heard it, too. "Last warning," he growled. And for a moment we just stood there, his finger tight on the trigger. My eyes locked on his, the weight of every camera phone in the air like 1,000 silent witnesses. I didn't know who would break first, but I knew one thing. It wasn't going to be me. Sarah's voice cut through the air, low but steady. Her phone angled just enough to catch my face, and the barrel pointed at it. "This guy's a cop," she whispered into her live stream. "Look at him, gun in his face." I didn't turn toward her. My eyes stayed on Whitman. "Officer, I recommend you lower your weapon before you regret it." He gave a sharp, mocking laugh. "Regret it? Oh, you'll be the one regretting it, boy." That word, boy. It hit like a slap. My jaw tightened, but I swallowed the heat crawling up my throat. Every second I stayed calm was another nail in his coffin. "Dale," Harris said, his voice louder this time. "This is getting out of hand." Whitman's eyes never left me. "You backing him or doing your job?" "My job is—" I let the pause hang just long enough for him to notice. Complicated. The crowd shifted. I caught movement in my peripheral. Sarah stepping closer, her voice now aimed at the entire street. "Everyone here sees it! This is gonna blow up!" "Shut your mouth, lady," Whitman snapped, swinging his glare toward her. No, I didn't raise my voice, but it sliced through the tension. "Let her talk." He looked back at me, nostrils flaring. "What did you say?" "I said let her talk. She's not the one pointing a weapon at an unarmed man in broad daylight." "That's so?" His grip tightened on the gun. "You look real unarmed to me. Big guy like you. Wouldn't be the first time someone used size as a weapon." My pulse pounded in my ears, but I forced my tone to stay even. What you're using is fear. You think that badge gives you the right to aim at anyone who doesn't. Fit your picture of belonging. Harris shifted again. Dale, we can de-escalate. Enough, Whitman barked, and for the first time I saw it. That flicker in his eyes. Not just anger. Not just bias. Fear. Sarah's voice rose over the murmurs. Everyone watching this? Remember his face? Officer Dale Whitman? Pulling a gun on a man for nothing? Phones were everywhere now. More people. More witnesses. Whitman's jaw clenched. I let the silence between us stretch. My stare locked on his. You feel that? I said quietly. That's the sound of the world watching you. The sirens were close enough to rattle my ribs. I didn't take my eyes off Whitman. His hand was still firm on the gun, but the twitch in his jaw told me he knew his grip on this moment was slipping. A black SUV screeched to a stop. The door slammed, and a deep voice cut through the tension. What's going on here? Whitman didn't hesitate. Caught him acting suspicious, he resisted. I felt a sharp laugh press against my teeth, but I kept my tone flat. Resisted? No. I stood still while you pointed a gun at an innocent man. The chief stepped forward, older, broader, eyes scanning the crowd before settling on me. Name? I didn't blink. Director Marcus Reed, Federal Bureau of Investigation. It was like someone hit a mute button on the entire street. The murmurs died. The crowd froze, and the only sound was the staccato clicking of camera phones. Harris took a full step back, his mouth half open. Whitman's lip curled. You're lying. Check your radio, I said, my voice steady. My ID was verified before you even pulled your weapon. For the first time since this started, Whitman's eyes flickered with something I hadn't seen before. Doubt. Whitman, Chief Daniels said, his voice low but razor-sharp. Put the gun down. Now. Whitman didn't move. Don't make me say it twice. Slowly, reluctantly, the barrel dipped toward the ground. He reholstered it with a jerky motion, but his stare stayed locked on me, burning with something ugly. Hands off your weapon, the chief ordered. Then to me, Director Reed, are you injured? I'm fine, I said, though my pulse still beat hard in my neck. But your officer just committed a federal crime on camera. Phones were still up. Sarah's voice carried from somewhere, behind me. Millions are gonna see this! The chief turned to Whitman. In my office! Now! Whitman took a step, but I stopped him with one last line. You're going to remember this moment for the rest of your life. His jaw tightened. He didn't answer, and he didn't have to. The silence said enough. Whitman's voice cracked the air like a whip. This is entrapment. You staged this. I didn't flinch. You staged it yourself the moment you saw my skin before my face. A ripple went through the crowd. Sarah's voice rose above it, firm and certain. It's all live. The world's watching. Whitman's face flushed, his jaw grinding. This is a damn circus. No, I said, my voice low enough to force him to lean in. This is accountability, something you've run from your whole career. Harris shifted beside him, his shoulders stiff. Chief, I've seen him do this before. Daniels shot him a warning look. Not now, Harris. I stepped forward, closing the space Whitman had been using like a shield. No, now is exactly the time. My pulse was steady. My breathing was calm. I knew this was the turning point. Whitman's lip curled. You think they'll believe you over me? I tilted my head toward Sarah's phone. The chat bubbles were flying faster than my eyes could track. They already do. He glanced at the lens, just for a second, and I saw it. The crack, the tiny flicker of fear. Let's play it back, I said. Every word you spoke. Sarah didn't hesitate. She hit the replay. His voice spilled into the street, amplified by the phone's tinny speaker. "Only mistake here is letting you run around free on the ground, boy." The crowd reacted like a single organism. Sharp intakes of breath, a few muttered curses, the shuffling of feet as people pressed closer. Whitman's eyes darted to the chief. That's exactly what you said," I cut in. "And that's exactly who you are." Harris's voice was quieter now, but it carried. "Chief, he's profiled men like this for years. Always walks away clean." The chief's gaze stayed fixed on Whitman, but his hands were clenched behind his back. "You don't get to walk away this time," I said. "Not from this. Not from me. And not from the millions who just watched you pull a gun on an innocent man because of the color of his skin." Whitman tried to speak, but the noise from the crowd swallowed him whole. This wasn't my fight alone, anymore. It belonged to everyone watching, here, and on the other side of that screen. And for the first time since he'd drawn his weapon, he looked smaller than the badge on his chest. The black SUVs rolled up fast. No sirens, just the weight of authority pressing into the air. My gut told me it was internal affairs before anyone said a word. The lead agent stepped forward. "Officer Whitman, you're under investigation." Whitman's voice exploded like a pressure valve. "For doing my job?" I didn't blink. "If racism is your job, then yes." The words came out like stone, not shouted, not rushed, just undeniable. The crowd behind me murmured, a quiet wave of approval that Whitman couldn't ignore. His eyes darted to them, then back to me, full of hate he could no longer hide. Chief Daniels exhaled, his voice flat. "Take him." 2 agents moved in. The click of the cuffs was louder than the ambient noise, like the sound of a chapter closing. "You people always—" Whitman started, that ugly sneer curling his lips. I stepped forward, meeting his eyes. So he knew I wouldn't let him slip away with half measures. "Finish that sentence, please. The cameras are still rolling." His jaw locked, but the words died there. "Thought so." I turned slightly toward Sarah's lens, not for show, but for record. Every breath of this moment mattered. The agents guided him toward the SUVs. The crowd didn't roar. They didn't need to. The quiet cheer, the clapping from a few hands. It felt heavier than any stadium noise. It was justice, measured and deliberate. Whitman didn't look back. But I knew the weight he carried now wasn't from the cuffs. It was from the truth he'd tried to bury, and failed. The microphones pushed forward like a wall of metal and foam, but I didn't step back. "Director Reed, any comment?" one reporter shouted over the others. I kept my voice level. "1. You never know who you're pointing your gun at, but you should always know why." The pens froze mid-scribble. Cameras whirred. I could feel the weight of the words hanging there, heavier than the night air. Sarah broke through the crowd, phone in hand, eyes wide. "The video's at 500,000 views already. 500,000 people. 500,000 witnesses to what Whitman thought he could bury." I let out a slow breath. "Good. Let them see it all." Harris stepped up beside me, still in uniform, but looking like the weight of years had been peeled off his shoulders. "Thanks for not staying quiet." His voice cracked slightly on, "Thanks." I'd seen men break in battle and still speak, steadier. I met his gaze. "Silence is where injustice lives." He nodded, but I could see something else in his eyes. Maybe shame for the times he'd stayed quiet himself. Maybe resolve not to again. The reporters kept shouting, throwing questions about Whitman, the investigation, my position, but I didn't give them more. This wasn't about feeding headlines. I turned away from the lights, the cameras, the clamor. The concrete under my boots felt cooler now, like the heat of confrontation had drained into the night. Sirens were just a faint hum somewhere far off, fading like the last traces of Whitman's voice. Sarah was still filming as I walked. I didn't tell her to stop. Some moments aren't meant to be hidden, even if the victory is quiet.